Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, clap once. You can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap thrice. All right. We're going to start very soon. We've got Congresswoman Norma Torres in here, and because she's not... we were wondering before we start, can I ask you all to come in here so we can take a picture, all of us, with her? Yeah, can you all come here to the front with me? I need people to hand signs.
Okay, can I get a few people behind us? Wonderful. A few more people? All right. A few more people behind us over here, please. Wonderful. If you could like squeeze together rather than have a line, that would be even better. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wonderful. There we go. Let's make all through. Yeah. All right, here we go.
All right. How it sound? Testing, testing, testing. Is that okay? Testing, testing, testing. Good. All right. Yeah. All right. All right. Please, as you finish your breakfast, please come here. All right. Are we all ready? All right. When I say fairness, you say freedom. Fairness to freedom. Fairness to freedom. Fairness to freedom. All right. I think we're ready. Welcome, everyone. My name is Laila Martin Garcia. I am the Universal Representation Field Manager for the Fairness to Freedom campaign. And I am so excited to be your MCs for today's event. We're here today to advocate for the Fairness to Freedom Act, a bill that would establish a right to federally funded universal legal representation for anyone facing deportation who cannot afford it. Today, you're going to hear from advocates, from legal service providers, directly impacted folks, and elected officials. Today, right after this rally, we're going to march together and visit our nation's capital and talk to our members of Congress about the Fairness to Freedom Act to garner their support towards this transformational bill. We are going to present them with the data, the personal stories, and the impact that this bill will have in the lives of our communities. Without further ado, I introduce you all to our first speaker of the day to start us off in the best way possible. So let's welcome, give it up for her, Nicole Melaku, Executive Director for the National Partnership for New Americans.
Laila, my speech. Thank you so much. How are we feeling, everyone, now that we have our coffee? Amazing. As Laila mentioned, my name is Nicole Malaku. I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the National Partnership for New Americans. I'm honored to be here today as we fight for immigrant inclusion. I stand before you to speak in support of the Fairness to Freedom Act. As a first-generation New American, I have witnessed the benefits of transformative policy like this when my parents were able to naturalize as a result of IRCA, the IRCA Immigration Reform and Naturalization Act of 1986. We are at a time when we see anti-immigrant rhetoric at an all-time high. And in the coming days, with the sunset of Title 42, now is the time to think about immigration process that strengthens our multicultural, multi-ethnic democracy. And now it's time for us to think forward. So we want to live in our values. We want to root ourselves in our communities, not living in fear. Fairness to Freedom Act is the first step in ensuring immigrants facing deportation have access to legal representation and aligns with the laws and values of justice and equality that we aspire to embody as a nation. NPNA firmly believes that immigrant inclusion is vital to the strength of our democracy. Currently, there are 2.1 million pending cases in the United States in immigration court, and more than half of them lack access to legal representation. The Fairness to Freedom Act calls for a right to federally funded representation for anyone facing deportation. And we say universal access for everyone, we mean everyone. With this, it's my pleasure today to introduce Congresswoman Norma J. Torres, representing California's 35th Congressional District, known as the Inland Empire in Southern California. Congresswoman Torres has served as a 911 dispatcher, state senator, assembly member, mayor, and council member in the city of Pomona. Representative Torres has been and continues to be a champion for immigrant communities and immigrant inclusion. We thank you today for your leadership, and we are so thrilled to welcome you as one of our co-sponsors of the Fairness to Freedom Act. Please join me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, good morning. Buenos días a todos. Great energy here at this Lutheran church. Thank you so much for hosting these wonderful volunteers that are going to make a big difference at the Capitol, talking to members of Congress like myself. This has to be a reality. We must pass this bill this year. We are here today for 3 reasons. First, because engraved in our Statue of Liberty is a promise of refuge, opportunity, and hope for immigrants. Second, because we have seen time after time now that our nation has broken that promise that they have made for many years. And finally, and most importantly, we are here to change the way our government treats those who risk everything in search of safety and opportunity. I am proud to be here with all of you because for me, this fight is personal. As a little girl, my family sent me to the U.S. because they knew that here in this country, I could have an opportunity for a great future. I was fortunate to have the support that I needed to serve my community. First, in my home city as a city councilwoman, and then elected mayor, in the state legislature, both in the House and in the state Senate. But before all of that, I was a 911 dispatcher, working the graveyard shift, serving the community of Los Angeles, taking on fights to help Latinos. When there weren't enough 911 dispatchers that spoke Spanish, I took on the LAPD to ensure that they would hire more bilingual dispatchers, not just in Spanish, but in other languages as well. You know, my story is the exception. I was one of a few lucky people who were able to get legal status. Our country promises opportunity for immigrants, but our complex immigration system snatches it away from them before they have a chance to seize it. Every single day, people facing removal proceedings are forced to defend themselves in court without a lawyer by their side. I have seen children facing deportation without an attorney by their side. These are often people who don't speak English and don't know anything about our confusing immigration system. Removal proceedings upon people's lives tear apart our families and shatter our communities. Our legal system does this to human beings without granting them their basic right to due process. With liberty and justice for all. Remember, don't forget the promise. That is shameful and un-American. I have repeatedly called on Congress to right this wrong, and last month I introduced the Fairness to Freedom Act. My bill would protect the right to due process for individuals facing removal proceedings. The United States would not be the country that it is today without the courage, the hard work, and sacrifices of its immigrant community. Yet, we have failed our immigrant communities, and Congress must fix that. That begins with building a legal system based on fairness and basic human decency. Everyone, regardless of their immigration status, deserves their fair day in court. I know that you will make your voices heard when you head to Capitol Hill today and tell our members of Congress how you feel about the Fairness to Freedom Act. I hope that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will listen to you. We're talking about a basic human right, and that should not be a partisan issue. It's time for Congress to do its job and establish universal legal representation. Thank you, thank you, thank you to each and every one of you, and I wish you the best today. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Norma Torres.
Thank you so much, Representative Torres. And thank you for your leadership on the Fairness to Freedom Act. Woo! Woo! Hey. I'm Annie Chen, and I'm from the Vera Institute of Justice. We are proudly partnered with the National Partnership for New Americans and over 180 organizations and government champions from around the country to support the Fairness to Freedom Act. That's all of you in this room, so thank you so much for showing up today. We are immigrants' rights organizations, service providers, community advocates, and local leaders, all fighting for universal representation. As you've heard, right now there are over 1.3 million people in this country facing deportation without access to representation. That means that all of these community members are facing the life-shattering consequences of deportation without access to basic due process, just because they can't afford an attorney. And no one should have to face a trained government attorney alone. We know that representation is a game changer. People who have access to legal representation standing beside them so that they can understand and exercise their rights are 10 times more likely to establish a right to remain in the United States. This means that more people are able to stay at home with their loved ones and in our communities. And this issue is very personal to me. I come to this as an attorney who has represented people facing deportation in detention. I have seen firsthand how inhumane ICE detention is and how impossible it is to navigate the immigration system alone. And as an immigrant myself who just naturalized about a year ago, this is going to be my first time going to Capitol Hill and actually lobbying my own representatives. We ask that Congress Follow the lead of the over 55 jurisdictions at the local and state level, cities, counties, that have states that have established publicly funded deportation defense programs already, and pass the Fairness to Freedom Act. Having representation beside you is a critical immigrants' rights issue, but it's also much more than that. And we can't selectively advance our bedrock values of fairness and due process, which is why we need universal representation to protect the rights and freedoms of every person and community in the United States. All right. With that, I'm going to introduce Kelly Rojas of the CARE Coalition. Let's give it up for Kelly.
Good morning. As Annie just shared, my name is Kelly Rojas, and I'm an attorney working at the Capital Area Immigrant Rights Coalition, where we defend people in court who are imprisoned by ICE while they are asked to prove that they have a right to be free and remain in this country under our country's immigration laws, which are complex, continually changing, oftentimes dubious in origin, and of an uneven application. And I am tired. Most of the people I have worked with who are facing this process in their lives have done so without any legal representation. I am tired of speaking to a father who is trying to show why he should be released and is denied while his teenage daughter fights for her life with cancer. I am tired of witnessing a person who was forced to be a soldier as a child and lived experiences no human being, let alone a child, should ever have to face, being told he would have to represent himself in demonstrating how he would be tortured if deported, and in habeas petitions and petitions for review with federal judges he would never get to speak to. I am tired of working with a person who is deciding whether to go to a loan shark to get money her family does not have to pay for a lawyer to help tell a court her partner will be killed if he is deported. I am tired of seeing this scenario play out in predictable fashion again and again and again, crushing lives and families and communities in the process. It doesn't have to be this way. At the time that I've been at CARE Coalition, I've seen that what happens when there is change, when it becomes not to be this way, when Marylanders, people in the District of Columbia, are given the ability to have counsel if they cannot afford to pay with that. Together, we will change the system, and I am so full of hope seeing what we are doing today to build up to the passage of the Fairness to Freedom Act and create the change that will mean no person will be expected to face our American immigration system without a trained legal advocate beside them. Legal representation can make the difference between being imprisoned, between being separated permanently from your family and community, from your life being in danger. This is not alone the solution, but is part of working towards a better future for people who have migrated to this country, for families and for communities. We don't need to be tired and alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, CARE Coalition, for the wonderful work that you all do and for inspiring us every day to keep fighting for justice and immigrant rights. And now we're gonna hear from somebody who would definitely benefit when we pass this legislation. I would like to introduce her. Her name is Justine Lin. She came all the way to California, although she was raised in PA proud. And she's an incoming law student. So I would like to introduce her so she can share a little bit about her story. Justine. Thank you.
So hello everybody, good morning. My name is Justine Lim and I am currently a project coordinator at the UCLA Dream Resource Center. And I'm also a recent graduate of UCLA just this past year, but I'm also an undocumented Chinese and Filipino immigrant. I was born in the Philippines and my family immigrated to the United States in 2005, where we settled in the small town of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And throughout my childhood, my mother was the sole breadwinner for our family. She worked as an undocumented worker in a factory. And when I was 9 years old, one of my best friends, whose mother also worked at a factory, a flag-making factory in Pennsylvania, got raided by ICE and she was detained. And this action really struck fear in me as a child because I wondered what would happen if that same thing happened to my mom. Would she be provided legal representation? You know, who would be there protecting her? And that fear in me as a child really propelled my search for justice and protection and brought me all the way out to California from Pennsylvania, where I was able to just recently graduated from UCLA and now am coming in pursuing law school and a legal education because I want to be a voice for my community and I want to be able to fight for it. So today I fight for the Fairness to Freedom Act to ensure that undocumented immigrants from my community who are facing deportation are provided legal counsel and a fair chance in our legal system.
Justine, it is a privilege to be standing like next to you, and I thank you for your commitment, for your leadership, and for being here with us today, all the way from California. Before we head out and visit our legislatures to demand that they step forward to swiftly pass the Fairness to Freedom Act, I would like to acknowledge the dedication of the Fairness to Freedom Campaigns Advisory Committee. And that includes Baji, that includes Brooklyn Defenders, CASA, CHIRLA, the Florence Project, Immigration Defense, MIRA, NIJC, NYAC, Planning Nevada, and TRP, and many more who are part of this coalition that have made this moment possible. Their input has shaped this bill and propelled its introduction. And I am proud to stand next to one of our advisory committee members, Ere Rendon, from the Resurrection Project, who came all the way from Chicago. So, Ere, dale duro.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Just want to start off by saying thank you for caffeinating the movement. Very crucial. Anybody who's not from the East Coast, I know we're all just getting out of the suffering right now. So my name is Ere Rendon with the Resurrection Project in Chicago and a proud board member of NPNA. And here to say that what we're trying to do is some of the stuff that we've actually been doing for a long time at the local level, right? We haven't all of a sudden woken up and said, we need to take this national. But what we're seeing is that places like Chicago, places like New York, places like California are doing amazing work, and many of you are the ones that are doing that. And we need to take this across the country. We need to make sure that in Georgia, that in Kansas, that in Tennessee, folks also have the right to legal counsel. Attorneys are the only job that's mentioned in the Constitution, right? And we have to protect the due process of all immigrants. When I was little, I came to the U.S. when I was 4 years old, I'm documented. Less than a year after arriving, my dad was detained and my dad was deported. I really don't know what the outcome would have been if he had an attorney, but I think that it could have been better. And I think that the rest of our lives could have been very different if his due process was protected. And that we continue to be undocumented, and I continue to be scared of my dad or my mom ever encountering ICE. But I'm very happy to be in a place like Illinois where I can find them an attorney, and we need to make that a reality throughout the country. So thanks so much for being here.
Right. Yeah.
We're gonna walk a little, we're gonna meet our Congress members, we're gonna educate them, we're gonna make sure that they know what we're here for today, and we're gonna make sure that we're on the movement, caffeinated movement, to making sure that everybody's due process is protected. Every immigrant has an advocate. Every immigrant has a fighting chance to stay with their families in the U.S. I'll pass it back to Layla.
And that's all. Thank you, Ere, always for your leadership. That's all. This is it. So please take your coffee, take your breakfast, because we're gonna start marching. I wanna thank you all. Let's not leave. We're gonna be organizing the little march, and I'm gonna be chanting. So I need you all to chant with me. Did you take your coffee? Or are you gonna leave me alone? Are you gonna leave me alone? No. All right. So we're gonna start the march. So take what you need right now. You can leave your luggage in here because we're gonna come back after your visits. Can you one second before we leave? We're gonna march literally